Okay, hello everybody. This is just going to be a quick presentation about the Workforce Development Project that I'm sure everyone's familiar with the fact that each sort of department in the office is going around and doing this little overview so we can get a better understanding of each other's work. So I'll start by saying thank you so much to Shaya for being the person who primarily put this really great presentation together. And I'll just jump into it and go over the information in there. So that's me. Uh, you might have seen me around the office. I'm the Workforce Project Manager. Uh, I started here in 2016 and sort of the project has grown a lot from me being the only staff member on the project before I even was an attorney, and then becoming an attorney to kind of overseeing the entire project. So I file all the expungements for our clients under my name, although with a great deal of help from the rest of the team, as well as providing some direct representation on other sorts of legal issues. So we'll talk a little bit about that later. Uh, the history of workforce development is kind of interesting within MVLS. It was supposed to be kind of a one-off grant project that started in 2016. There was federal funding given to certain cities around the country after some of the social unrest that occurred in 2015. There, Baltimore was identified as one of those cities. And you might remember, if you were around back then, this thing called One Baltimore for Jobs, or we called it 1B4J for short. That was a citywide project through the mayor's office that was funded by that federal grant that was aimed at connecting different nonprofit service providers that all have some relationship to workforce development. So it was sort of like there was a central hub of actual direct job trainers that serve usually people who have been incarcerated, people who have otherwise lacked access to stable employment or stable educational opportunities, and really need some support to help find stable and long-term employment. So there's kind of a group of independent nonprofit job training providers that were identified, and then they received financial support as well as this sort of second layer of supplemental services. So things like childcare, adult education, behavioral health, and all sorts of social services like that. And then legal services were identified as another component. So that project officially went and through like halfway through 2017, I think. And then we received such a good feedback from the partners we served about how the trainees really liked the legal services. So we continued to seek independent funding to keep basically just doing the same thing under a different name. Eventually, we started just calling it Workforce Development Project, and we are here today, and the project has continued to grow. We have this American Rescue Plan Act funding that has allowed us to expand the services and hire Shaya and Patrick as well, and taking over even more job training sites that used to be serviced by legal aid, who had a very similar project, as well as having the cannabis expungement project be housed under this workforce development program. Um, I won't, we won't have the cannabis folks as part of this presentation, but I think we'll have our own presentation devoted to that project. So what we specifically do at these partners is we supplement the social services that are already being provided to the clients, the job trainees, who usually have some form of case management financial services and different things of that nature. And we go out and try to just plug into the existing curriculum, which means kind of showing up at the job training site and to make it as seamless as possible and be kind of like we are a scheduled portion of the curriculum that already exists within that job training calendar. And we do presentations. We do what we call legal screenings, which are like an intake that our legal advocates would perform, but it serves that function of an intake, but then it also serves as this questionnaire where we dig in deeper and ask people questions to identify legal issues that could be a barrier to employment, which we have some examples of later. But yeah, and then we take that information back to the office, and I think we'll have a little bit more detail about what happens there coming up on future slides. We also provide presentations that we sometimes call them Know Your Rights presentations. These are usually aimed at the clients to kind of give a little bit more in-depth information about different legal concerns, such as consumer law or whatever it might be. Sometimes it's actually aimed at the staff of the training sites so that we can educate the social workers, the case managers, the other staff about how to identify legal barriers, how to be aware of legal issues that might affect their trainees. Or really, a lot of people just want to know about expungement. It's obviously what our project is known the most for, probably even within the office here. And people just they're interested in it because it's something that just affects so many people who are going through these programs. And then on that note, I always say we're kind of the de facto expungement department, even if that's not formally the only thing we do, but generally this program has been responsible for overseeing the expungement clinics, which that does go outside of the official job training partners that we work with. And a lot of them are open to the public. And then also being the main point of contact for training and engaging volunteers on expungement. I go out to a lot of firms and do trainings to try to recruit volunteers. So with that, I'll turn it over to Shaya to talk about her position, and we'll have our other colleagues talk a little bit about what they do specifically within the project.
Okay, thanks for passing it over, Chris. So just like Chris mentioned once before, there was a transition of funding from MLA to MVLS to support. I think we had about 9 new work sites that was handed to us. So my primary role is to build and sustain those relationships with those new workforce sites that we had just been passed over. And within that role, also coordinate right here, just like it says, MVLS services with the site staff, collaborate with partner sites to address barriers to employment, organize, just like Chris was also talking about, some Know Your Rights trainings. I also participate in actually doing some of the screenings on site, along with assisting with development of self-help materials at these sites. And I'll pass it back to you, Chris.
Okay, thank you. So I'll pass it over to our paralegals to just talk a little bit about what they do specifically in their positions. I apologize for Patrick that we don't have your headshot completed yet, but Patrick, of course, is our newest paralegal on the team.
I can take it from here.
Okay, go ahead, Theo.
Oh, sorry. So Chris gave a pretty thorough overview of what we do, but I'll just add / paraphrase that when we go out to these sites, we're typically meeting with clients one-on-one and doing these legal screenings. And then the bulk of what we do is expungement. So we will perform background checks and do the analysis for any cases that can be expunged, ideally ahead of time, and have clients sign all the paperwork, and then we just kind of take it from there. And then our clients do often have non-expungement related legal issues, and we'll typically either refer folks to other organizations that can help, or we also place cases with volunteers, similar to the intake paralegals. And that's pretty much the bulk of what we do. And I don't know if Sylvia, Patrick want to add anything.
No, I think you got it all. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, so without repeating ourselves too much, we kind of explained the first few steps in this process already, but basically after we collect information from our clients at the sites, we figure out what legal issues they are seeking help with, and then we at a certain point kind of decide, okay, well, depending on the type of legal issue, are we providing direct in-house representation? Are we referring to pro bono? Are we referring to another nonprofit partner? Or are we trying to find some other sort of referral or resource? So we generally take all of the expungement cases in-house. We may be moving toward placing some of them because of the volume that we're going to be getting from some of these new sites. Then, of course, we put other types of cases on the pro bono portal. We also, Theo and Sylvia engage in a lot of direct pitching as well. And we also work with Legal Aid, Homeless Persons Representation Project, Baltimore Action Legal Team, and other nonprofits to refer clients to them for things that fall outside of MVLS's scope. And then we're always kind of trying to find out about more resources and referrals for other things that aren't necessarily legal organizations, but places that can help with like identity theft recovery or MVA fines and fees issues, or any other sort of little thing that's just getting in the way of this trainee's success. And of course, people are familiar with our MVLS's main areas of law. And just as I kind of mentioned earlier, we do provide more than just expungement within the Workforce Development Project, though that simply is the most popular area of law that we help out with. But we do provide any sort of service that MVLS provides can be provided to the trainees through the Workforce Project. And this is just an example of some of the questions that are on our screening tool. Some of them are a little bit more general, as you can see, but some of the things we try to make the wording a little more direct. Like if we ask someone, do you have concerns about taxes? Even if they owe back taxes and they know that they owe back taxes, you'd be surprised sometimes people would just say, no, I don't need help with that. Because maybe they just don't feel like dealing with it at the time, or they don't feel like it's just stressful to talk about and they're focused on their training, something like that. You know, it could be a million different things. But when we ask more direct questions like, have you received anything in the mail from the IRS? We kind of open up a conversation to talk more specifically about what we can do, or what exactly the situation is that person is in. And then, of course, we have mainly the in-person face-to-face interactions with our clients, but then the project has really just expanded so much. It's including applications being submitted at outreach events. Shia has been going around to many new sites and signing people up to be placed through pro bono. And then of course the cannabis team is doing the same thing as well. So it really just reaches pretty far and wide in terms of what MVLS can do. We try to plug into the existing scope of our work and just help as many people as we can. And then these are some examples of some common referrals that we make for our clients. And again, sometimes if we can develop a closer relationship with actual contacts at these sites, we will try to do so. It's sort of an ongoing battle because sometimes you develop a great contact and then they leave that place and then you kind of have to start from scratch. But we're always doing our best to figure out how to make that work. And those are some of the sites that we work with. So on the left, some of those are places that we've been working with for even before I started at MVLS through the One Baltimore for Jobs. They were actually more or less assigned to us through the grant. We don't really choose the sites for the most part. It kind of just, because it's coming from the city and federal funding, and they're kind of saying, these are the partners you're going to work with, at least for the examples on this page, with maybe the exception of Helping Up Mission. But the left is long-term sites. The right column is just some of our brand new sites that Shia has been working hard to develop great relationships with. So I know this is supposed to be a pretty short presentation, so I'll just cut it off there and appreciate everyone's attention. If anyone has any questions about the project, we would be happy to hear from you.
Thanks, Chris. I know when I'm doing orientation, I am always trying to keep up on your newest list of sites. So this was a helpful presentation for me.
Oh, I'm glad.
In just the right length too.
Okay, good. I was worried I was going a little long, but that's good to hear.
Yeah, it was a little over 15 minutes, so you're good. Perfect. I timed you.
Thank you.